By the latter half of the 20th century, major new technological and economic processes of change were underway as national economies and infrastructure were becoming increasingly connected into global networks of exchange. The advent of low-cost computing and telecommunication networks would work to enable the development of ever larger, more complex systems of organization. In the 80s and 90s, financial markets became deregulated and expanded into a global network of exchange. We saw a huge rise in multinational corporations as they expanded beyond their national economies, entering into new markets. Through outsourcing, enterprises became distributed out. With advances in transport and trade liberalization, integrated global supply chains started to take form, and the global economy expanded hugely within the space of just a few decades. With the development of globalization, the emergence of the services economy and information technology, the global economy is going through a deep structural transformation, moving from an industrial model of mass production organized around the nation-state and its territory into a new form of services and information economy based around global networks of exchange. Urban networks are the physical means of connectivity. They are systems of technology that enable us to overcome physical borders and connect with ever larger networks. These networks of roads, of communications, of power lines, of logistics, air transport, shipping, are the physical form of this global connectivity. There are now vastly more resources moving around in these global networks than in any national economy, and around the world, people are flocking to cities as points of access into these emerging global networks and the opportunities they provide. As our economies and societies develop into some form of global organization, so too our technology infrastructure is morphing into a new structure of urban networks that enables this physical connectivity. Just as the industrial technologies provided the physical means for enabling the national economy, so too our technology infrastructure today is being reconfigured to provide the connectivity for a global economy. It is only in very recent years the global economy has switched from being dominated by agriculture and industry to becoming predominantly based on services and information. As a consequence, societies and economies around the world are being transformed from being primarily organized around physical agricultural and industrial processes within the national territory, and instead moving to the delivery of services, the processing of information and knowledge which is no longer defined by its physicality and the logic of territoriality, but instead is one based on the logic of access and connectivity. It is this connectivity that urban centers provide. As economies shift from being industrial to post-industrial services economies, a new strategic role is given to cities, as they become the locus of high value-added services, of innovation and knowledge creation. With globalization and urbanization, we are in the process of creating a new geography, a geography based around functional connectivity instead of physical borders. Whereas the building of the nation-state and its borders was cultural and ideological in nature, these global networks are functional in nature. Connections are made horizontally to facilitate exchanges in a world where market logic and technology have combined to create a powerful engine driving the world forward for better or worse. The infrastructure networks that now stretch around the planet are held together by urban centers that form dense concentrations of connectivity. urban centers function as the hubs within regional networks that reach into the territory of the locality, linking it into larger networks of exchange. On the macro level, these urban centers become nodes within the global network of cities that provide the critical mass of advanced services required to operate the world economy at its current level of functionality. The leaders in providing this connectivity are what we call global cities. These are urban centers that provide the services for integrating the whole network. A network of over 100 global cities is now understood as the landing point for worldwide networks of finance and the hubs for logistics networks. These cities constitute a myriad of overlapping and intersecting flows of ideas, knowledge, people, money, goods, and have a direct and tangible effect on affairs around the planet. When the world is seen from this perspective of urban connectivity, a new image emerges, where each city is horizontally oriented to other cities of the same level of interconnectivity. As cities have become interconnected over the past decades, they have come to identify themselves increasingly in relation to their peer cities around the world, instead of so much with their national economy. As these major urban centers have risen, they have both come to take on more power and influence over their own operations and the operations of the global economy, but they have also come to differentiate themselves within these larger networks and increasingly compete with other cities. Being a global city, though, is not about size or even economic scale. It is about performing a differentiated function within a global network of exchange, and thus making them a strategic location within a worldwide value chain. Global cities play specific roles in specific networks. For example, cities like Taipei and Shenzhen are major nodes in the supply network for high-tech electronics, while cities like Geneva and Nairobi are important nodes in global civil society networks, Dubai and Hong Kong for air transport networks, Washington and Brussels for international political networks. But the absolute leaders in this global connectivity play a major role in almost all these networks: London, New York, Tokyo, and Paris. These urban networks are the most complex, multidimensional, and their influence is the farthest reaching. They regulate vast flows of financial capital, effectively coordinate millions of people and production processes in a multiplicity of overlapping complex networks. Tourist attractions, research centers, shopping destinations, tech startups, the engines of the knowledge economy, corporate headquarters, melting pots of people, ideas, culture, all concentrated in small areas of dense interaction and connected into information networks that shape the operations of the economy around the world.